A rising star disappears. Accusations fly from a former world champion. The world of chess watches, stunned and uneasy. What happens when the very institutions meant to protect the sport fail at their most basic duty? To care for their players. This is the story of Daniel Naroditsky's tragic end, the accusations made by Vladimir Kramnik, and the role of FIDE in chess, calm in a controversy that has shaken the chess community to its core. For years, Daniel Naroditsky had carved out a special place in the chess world, not just as a grandmaster, but as one of the most beloved online educators and commentators. At just 29, he had built a loyal following, a respected presence, and a bright future. But that bright light began to flicker when suspicions started circulating. Suspicions that came not from a random internet troll, but from one of the greatest chess minds of all time, Vladimir Kramnik. What began as subtle questioning of fairness soon evolved into open accusations, and Naroditsky found himself at the center of an unwanted storm. Vladimir Kramnik, the former world champion who once dethroned Garry Kasparov and stood as one of the most analytical thinkers in the game, began publicly questioning the integrity of several top players. Among those names was Daniel Naroditsky. Kramnik claimed to have collected what he called serious material, evidence suggesting anomalies in Naroditsky's online performances. But rather than keeping the matter private or following institutional channels, Kramnik aired his suspicions publicly, drawing massive attention to Naroditsky and triggering a wave of harassment and doubt from the chess community. For Naroditsky, who had built a reputation as a teacher and entertainer as much as a competitor, the impact was devastating. He addressed the controversy in his live streams, trying to maintain composure but showing clear signs of exhaustion and pain. In one emotional broadcast, he said, "Ever since the Kramnik stuff, if I start doing well, people assume the worst of intentions." His words revealed not just frustration but heartbreak, the sense that his credibility, painstakingly earned through years of dedication, was being torn apart by a single powerful voice. On October 19, 2025, news broke that Daniel Naroditsky had been found dead in his home in Charlotte, North Carolina. Police have not released a definitive cause of death, though reports suggest either suicide or accidental overdose. Regardless of the cause, the shockwaves through the chess world were immediate. Fans, colleagues, and fellow grandmasters flooded social media with tributes and disbelief. The cheerful teacher who had guided millions through chess puzzles and endgames was gone. The aftermath took a darker turn when Kramnik, instead of retreating from the public eye, released a lengthy statement denying any guilt. He insisted that he bore no responsibility for Naroditsky's death, claiming instead that FIDE and chess.com were to blame. According to him, he had repeatedly alerted these institutions to what he believed were irregularities in Naroditsky's online play, yet they allegedly ignored him. "I have no guilt in it," Kramnik said. "I was always responsible with my words." He expressed sorrow over Naroditsky's death, calling it shocking and heartbreaking, but maintained that the real negligence lay with the governing bodies that failed to act. Many in the chess community, however, see things differently. They argue that Kramnik's public comments were reckless and cruel, even if he genuinely believed his suspicions. Making them so publicly, without proof, invited ridicule and scrutiny upon Naroditsky. Top players like Hikaru Nakamura and Magnus Carlsen openly condemned Kramnik's behavior, saying that a person of his stature should have known the consequences of his words. When a legend speaks, the world listens, and in this case, that voice helped fuel a narrative that left a young man broken and isolated. The institutions Kramnik accused, FIDE and chess.com, have since launched investigations into both the allegations and Kramnik's conduct. FIDE released a statement saying, "Human life and dignity are fundamental values. All relevant public statements will be referred to the Ethics and Disciplinary Commission." But many see this as too little, too late. The tragedy had already unfolded, and a family had lost their son. Critics say that both organizations failed to step in when the situation escalated, allowing an unverified campaign of suspicion to spiral unchecked. This story forces uncomfortable questions about how the chess world handles allegations of cheating. Online play has made chess more accessible, but it has also opened the door to endless speculation. Grandmasters are human. capable of error, emotion, and mental collapse under pressure. When someone of Kramnik's status accuses another player, even indirectly, the damage to reputation can be irreversible. The distinction between raising suspicion and accusing becomes meaningless in the court of public opinion. Naroditsky's situation highlights another neglected issue: the mental health of players. Chess is a lonely pursuit. Whether you're sitting across from an opponent in silence or streaming to thousands online, the pressure to perform perfectly is immense. Add public suspicion to that mix, and the psychological toll becomes unbearable. In his final weeks, Naroditsky's words hinted at exhaustion. He was a man fighting an invisible enemy, the weight of other people's doubts. His fans recall moments in his streams where his usual humor faded, replaced by visible fatigue and quiet resignation. Kramnik's defense has been that he only wanted fairness in chess, that he did not accuse Naroditsky directly, and that his intent was to alert institutions privately. Yet his posts, interviews, and public discussions tell a different story. They fueled headlines, internet debates, and countless speculative videos. For Naroditsky, that meant constant public judgment. No matter what he said, no matter how cleanly he played, the shadow of suspicion loomed. His name became attached to words like cheating and controversy, erasing years of honest work and integrity. After Naroditsky's death, petitions emerged calling for Kramnik's suspension from chess events. Others demanded FIDE impose stricter regulations on how players and officials handle accusations. Some went further, urging chess.com to introduce mental health support for streamers and professionals under attack. The tragedy has forced a reckoning, revealing deep cracks in how chess deals with internal conflict and reputation. Kramnik, however, remains unyielding. He claims he is being vilified unfairly, that he is now the victim of a PR campaign meant to destroy his image. "I will meet them in court," he said defiantly. He insists his intentions were honest and his evidence solid, blaming the institutions for not investigating his findings. But his insistence does little to quiet the growing anger from fans and professionals who see his words as cruelly misplaced. Behind all this public turmoil lies a deeper, quieter truth: the human cost. Daniel Naroditsky was more than a name on a leaderboard or a thumbnail on YouTube. He was a teacher, a storyteller, a person who made chess feel alive and joyful for millions. His death isn't just a loss for the game. It's a reminder of how fragile people can be when the spotlight turns cruel. Those who followed him didn't just lose a grandmaster. They lost a friend, a mentor, a voice of reason and warmth in a competitive, often toxic online world. And yet, his death also exposes something bigger. The chess world, for all its brilliance and intellectual prestige, still struggles with empathy. It has long been a space where mental health is ignored, where reputations can be destroyed overnight, and where power dynamics protect the famous over the vulnerable. When an established legend like Kramnik raises suspicions about a younger player, the imbalance is immense. Even if no rules are broken, the social and emotional consequences are real, and sometimes, as this story shows, devastating. Today, FIDE and chess.com are being forced to reckon with what comes next. Will they introduce reforms to prevent public character assassinations? Will they offer support systems for players facing abuse or unfounded suspicion? Will they establish clearer protocols to handle cheating allegations privately and transparently? The chess world is watching closely, because if nothing changes, then Daniel Naroditsky's death will become just another tragic story in a long list of avoidable losses. In the end, this isn't only about two men and one tragedy. It's about what happens when a community forgets compassion. It's about how words, especially from powerful figures, can wound deeper than any defeat on the board. Kramnik may deny guilt. FIDE may deflect blame. But the silence that allowed this storm to grow belongs to everyone who watched and said nothing. For millions of fans, Naroditsky's legacy will remain that of a kind, brilliant teacher who gave chess a human heart. But his death forces the game's institutions and heroes to face uncomfortable truths. The question now is whether they will learn, or whether the next bright young player will face the same darkness alone. This is not just a chess story. It is a story about accusation and vulnerability, power and responsibility, public platforms, and private pain. For every Daniel Naroditsky who teaches, streams, and inspires, there are unseen pressures behind the screen. For every legendary champion who speaks, there is the risk of unintended harm. And for every institution tasked with protecting its players, there is a moral duty to act with empathy, accountability, and courage. Because sometimes, the greatest moves aren't made on the chessboard. They're made in how we treat one another when the game is over.